however much energy you have is false. It's not there. You have to train to be superior. You have to train to be effective. You have to train to be dangerous.
But Conor Benn's coming up 2 weight classes, and that's what makes this fight a 50-50. Eubank has the size, but Conor has the speed, the sharpness, and in my opinion, the ability.
I look to you and say, well, you're not doing your job. This is not boxing. It is not okay. It is disgraceful. The fight will not happen, because if it happens, it means the rules have failed. And I believe in the rules.
In a fiery and emotional declaration, British boxing legend Chris Eubank Sr. has issued a stark warning to his son, Chris Eubank Jr., urging him to avoid a long-anticipated fight against Conor Benn, the son of his former ring rival, Nigel Benn. As the buzz around the showdown between the 2 young lions intensifies, Eubank Sr. has made his position crystal clear. Chris Eubank Sr., known for his stoic demeanor and philosophical insights, has spoken out with rare urgency. This isn't just a contest between 2 fighters, it's a continuation of a bloodline rivalry, a saga passed from fathers to sons. But Chris Eubank Sr.'s concerns lie deeper than history or headlines. He has previously expressed worry following the tragic incident of one of his other sons, Sebastian Eubank, in 2021. Since then, his view on risk and legacy in the sport has noticeably shifted. Sr. has hinted that the emotional stakes are too high, and he believes Benn brings a level of ferocity and unpredictability that poses a serious threat to his son. The upcoming fight will mark one of the most emotionally charged and lucrative fights in British boxing history. Both Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn carry undefeated pride, generational pressure, and a burning desire to avenge the past and carve their own legacies.
No matter what.
What rules failed, Chris? What rule is that?
Well, you see, I heard this, to put it into perspective, I heard and watched on Piers Morgan. I listened to Conor Benn. He literally said this. You can go back and watch it. He said, I am really a 147 fighter, but for this fight, I'm going up to 160, then I'll come back down. Who are you? So the rules don't apply to you. Is this it?
But for Eubank Sr., none of that matters. The boxing world has reacted with a mix of sympathy, concern, and intrigue. While some support Chris Eubank Sr.'s plea, others argue that Eubank Jr. is a grown man capable of making his own decisions. So far, Chris Eubank Jr. has remained relatively quiet regarding his father's latest warning. In previous interviews, he has acknowledged his father's concerns but emphasized that his path is his own. This sets up a dramatic family dynamic, where fatherly concern collides with professional ambition, making this bout not just a fight, but a philosophical and emotional battlefield. The father also criticized his son in a recent interview with Seconds Out for his behavior during a face-off with Conor Benn. Indeed, a lot has to be unpacked here. In case you missed it, Eubank Jr. made news a few weeks ago when, during a face-off, he smashed an egg into Benn's face.
6. It's Benn versus Eubank. The limit 160 pounds. The family feud goes on.
Most in the sport denigrated Eubank Jr. and penalized him for his behavior. Still, his father's words struck a deeper chord than anyone else's criticism. Sr. wasn't shy in his interview. He said, "Junior, you're smashing an egg against this guy's face. I taught you that? I didn't teach you that. Who taught you that? Did Karen teach you that? Who taught you that? That's disgraceful. I'm gonna stand in your corner? You must be mad. I would never be in your corner. You're a disgrace. You're smashing an egg against someone's face, and then you're trying to justify it. There's no justification for that. There's nothing noble about that." Eubank Sr.'s remarks were extremely forthright in both time and tone. He didn't merely disapprove of the stunt. He completely disowned his son's actions, denouncing them so publicly it made headlines. The incident added yet another strange, emotionally charged twist to a fight already steeped in history. Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn shared one of British boxing's most iconic rivalries, clashing twice. Eubank claimed victory by TKO in their first bout, while their rematch ended in a hard-fought draw. The matchup between their sons was meant to carry that legacy forward, but instead, it appears to have unraveled into something entirely different. Boxing history has seen its share of turbulent father-son relationships, But the Eubanks occupy their own special corner of dysfunction. From public critiques to telling moments of distance during both triumphs and setbacks, the emotional undercurrent between Sr. and Jr. has long shaped their story, though seldom has it erupted into the open with such raw clarity. On April 26th, Eubank Jr. and Benn engage in combat at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in Tottenham, London, UK. The rest of the card packs a punch. With the bout just days away, all eyes are fixed on Eubank Jr. and how he navigates both the media frenzy and his clash with Benn. His father's public disavowal may either shake his confidence or fuel his fire, and that could prove pivotal when the bell rings. For fans, the generational storyline has taken a twist, branching into a more tangled family saga, one that casts April 26th in a far more intriguing light. Moreover, Chris Eubank Sr. has made a sensational claim, insisting that had his son thrown an egg during his prime, he would have been disqualified on the spot. The boxing legend has criticized both fighters and expressed his disapproval of the fight taking place at all. Eubank Sr. thinks his son tarnished the sport's reputation when he threw an egg at his opponent's face during a tense press conference and face-off in February. The bout, promoted as a legacy fight because of the iconic rivalries between Eubank and Nigel Benn, Conor's father, during the 1990s, doesn't sit well with him. The 58-year-old shared his thoughts on the son's preview show, where he was joined by George Groves and his nephew, Harlem Eubank. He said, "You say this is a legacy fight?" During the show's opening, Eubank Sr. interrupted. He was informed that because of the connection between his family and the Benns, the bout had in fact been advertised as a legacy battle. Eubank Sr. said that the fight had been billed as a legacy fight, but in his view, it had started back in 1990 with him and Nigel. He questioned whether he should be associated with his son smashing an egg on Conor's face, asking if that was what people now called legacy. He insisted it was not legacy, but rather something that brought the sport of boxing into disrepute, something that, in his time, would have resulted in disqualification. He further remarked that Conor's language was no different, describing it as sounding like that of a possessed drunk. From a boxing standpoint, he pointed out that both Groves and Eubank Jr. could support his view. If Jr. had only fought 3 times in 3 years, and Conor had also only fought 3 times in 3 years, then all the talk was just hot air. He emphasized that no matter how much energy or noise one made, it meant nothing without proper training. One had to train to be superior, effective, and dangerous.
Different to the language of Conor. The man speaks like he's a possessed drunk from a boxing point of view. And, the fighters here will actually back this up. If Junior has only fought 3 times in 3 years, and if Conor has only fought 3 times in 3 years, it's hot air.
Groves then questioned Eubank Sr. on if the bout, which was promoted as one of the biggest in Britain this year, was a reflection of the poor state of boxing. The former WBO middleweight and super middleweight champion responded, "It's the biggest fight for what reason? One is swearing like a possessed drunk, and another is using an egg." Eubank Sr. is not anticipated to be ringside, though. Due to a falling out between the two, Eubank Sr. has not supported his son since 2019. Eubank Jr. disclosed in March that after he stepped out of his shadow, their relationship soured. He told Piers Morgan's Uncensored, "It got to a stage where I needed to step out of the shadow completely. It's a big shadow. I realized I have to separate myself from this huge character that's always next to me. He's different. His father kind of let him do his own thing. Jump in and sink or swim. My old man was always next to me. I got to a stage where I decided that I needed to walk my own path." He was not happy with that decision. In an emotional message, Nigel Benn has now publicly called on Eubank Sr. to support his son by going to the fight in North London. He told the BBC, "I just wish Chris Eubank Sr. was there because it is like a family affair and I just hope they patch it up. At the end of the day, I don't want him having a disagreement with his son, a son that he loves, a son that he cares for. I just want him to be there in his corner. It would be sad with him not being there." He added, "So if you are watching Chris, come and support your boy mate. We all want you there so we can see each other after the fight and hug each other and say it is all over. So be there, my friend." Eubank Sr. and Benn had been at odds since their 1990 grudge match. With the WBO title at stake, Eubank Sr. prevailed via stoppage in the 9th round. 3 years later, they agreed to a rematch. Despite their sons developing their own rivalry, they have put water under the bridge between them. Meanwhile, Eubank Jr. has told BBC Sport he wants revenge and to make Benn pay. Benn, who has always protested his innocence in the substance case, predicts a one-sided beatdown. From Benn's 2-year doping saga to the notorious Eubank slap involving an egg that sent tabloid writers into a frenzy of puns, it's hard to think of a fight so deeply steeped in history, animosity, and bad blood before the first bell even rang. During a legendary period for the weight class in Britain, former super middleweight world champions Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn engaged in 2 bouts. Although there was some light trash talk, neither boxer crossed the line during the media events. In fact, they even exchanged a friendly handshake during one of the face-off interviews. I could even say I liked him because there's no other person on the planet that's experiencing this journey and can relate to what I've gone through. There was 100% respect there, Eubank says. However, that respect vanished when news broke on the Wednesday of Fight Week that Benn had tested positive for the women's fertility substance. The British Boxing Board of Control chose not to approve the fight, with the cancellation officially announced the following day. Meanwhile, Benn was discreetly escorted out of the hotel before the waiting media were informed. Benn was drawn into one of the most significant doping scandals in British boxing history, and it was a black eye for boxing without a punch being delivered. Benn acknowledged that he had failed 2 tests, but he maintained that he was not guilty of doping on purpose and that contamination might have been the cause. He was initially suspended from fighting in March 2023. Following a protracted saga where the ban was both lifted and reinstated after appeals by UK anti-doping and the BBBOFC, Benn was ultimately cleared to return to the ring in the UK in November 2024. Prior to then, he made 2 appearances in the US, however, his reputation suffered, especially at home. Benn gave the WBC a 270-page document that, in his opinion, showed no misconduct. When the WBC came to the conclusion that the failed tests could have been due to a highly elevated consumption of eggs, boxing fans ridiculed him. An image of a standard pizza with boiled eggs on top was even shared by a popular restaurant with the remark, "Conor Benn special." Although Benn did not do many interviews with the media, he nearly broke down in tears when discussing a vendetta against him with Piers Morgan. We may never know why or how clomiphene got into Benn's body because the cause of the failed tests is still unclear. Benn, who claims to have spent £1 million on legal fees, feels justified in his stance and sees no reason to release the dossier or the results of his legal fight. However, certain members of the boxing audience are still not convinced, and his promoter Eddie Hearn says he expects his fighter to be heckled on his ring walk.
I think the one thing that Chris Eubank has that Conor doesn't in this fight is size and probably strength. What he doesn't have, in my opinion, is the boxing ability, the speed, the movement of Conor Benn. Don't get me wrong, if this fight was at the same weight class, Conor Benn's a big favourite. But Conor Benn's coming up 2 weight classes, and that's what makes this fight a 50-50. Eubank has the size, but Conor has the speed, the sharpness, and in my opinion, the ability.
Eubank focused on other things as Benn battled with failed doping tests. He played a key role in one of the most captivating rivalries in recent years, enduring a surprising defeat to Liverpudlian Liam Smith just 2 months after his cancelled bout with Benn. 8 months later, Eubank won handily, inside the distance, to exact revenge for that loss. He had been vying for a lucrative opportunity to face the undisputed super middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez, but the specter of Benn always lingered, at times even right beside him. In October, when his opponent was getting ready to face Kamil Ceremeta, Benn flew to Saudi Arabia and pushed Eubank during a press conference. Benn stormed the ring following Eubank's easy stoppage victory. Superstar football player Neymar of Brazil appeared perplexed as the two threw insults at one another while engaged in a face-off. It required affluent Saudi Arabia to persuade the boxers to agree after months of squabbling over purse distributions. According to Eubank, he is merely providing the public with what they desire. Why not exact my revenge on this man for the things he said about me, for the things he put me through over the last few years, he says. Benn says there was no other fight for him, claiming he turned down a world title opportunity. Over the last 2.5 years, the fight's intensity has steadily grown. During the initial media frenzy, any concerns that the 62,000-seat Tottenham Hotspur Stadium would not sell out were promptly dispelled. At a news conference in February, the boxers bickered like spoiled schoolchildren, with Eubank dominating the moment, launching verbal jabs at anyone within his line of sight, including Benn and Hearn. Then, the viral moment arrived. In reference to the previously cited WBC report, Eubank took one of the 16 eggs that were in his pocket and smacked it across Benn's cheek during their first face-off. A substantial fine of £100,000 was paid by Eubank. While some critics believe it was a bad appearance for the sport, others think it was a brilliant marketing move. No matter where you stand, and despite everything the fighters and their fathers have endured, the egg slap has emerged as the surprising symbol of a rivalry that will finally clash in the ring for a long-awaited showdown this Saturday. Chris Eubank Jr. has acknowledged that he is stepping into uncharted territory due to the fight day weight limit ahead of his highly anticipated clash with Conor Benn. The bout is set to take place at middleweight, with Benn stepping up 2 divisions from his usual welterweight to face Eubank Jr. This marks an increase from the original 157 pounds limit agreed upon for their planned fight in 2022, which was ultimately cancelled. Due to Eubank Jr.'s natural middleweight weight, both men are prohibited from weighing more than 170 pounds on fight night under a hydration clause. In his 14-year professional career, Eubank Jr. has never had to deal with the problem of gaining weight on fight day, so this presents a new difficulty: uncharted territory. It's one of those things that when a challenge is put in front of me, I don't shy away from it. It excites me, he told Sky Sports. He added, "The real weight cut doesn't really come until the week of the fight for most fighters. It's tough. I'm not going to lie. It's not fun. It's not nice. It's part of the sport having to boil yourself down to a certain weight." Adding in the fact I can't even drink as much as I want after the weigh-in adds another element of discomfort, hardship to what I'm going through. Eubank Jr. added, "But this is what we sign up for. This is what we do as professional athletes. As elite-level fighters, we have to go through these trials, these tribulations. I've been doing it my entire career, so I have no doubt that the weight will be made." Much has been said about the weight disparity between the two fighters, with Eubank Jr., who has also competed at super middleweight, holding a distinct weight advantage even with the stipulation in place. Although the cut won't be easy for Eubank Jr., Benn, a natural welterweight, has had to forego fighting at his preferred weight in order to make the bout happen and fulfill his destiny of facing the son of his father Nigel's fiercest rival. Given the risks involved, Eubank Sr. has voiced his dissatisfaction at the upcoming battle and taken strong issue with Benn moving up 2 weight classes. Eubank Jr., however, is more concerned with how his body will handle the added strain on fight day, as the stipulation prevents him from fully recharging to peak power. He added, "I actually have no idea how my body's going to react. It's something I've never done before. Usually I put on around 14 pounds after a weigh-in. In this instance, I can only put on 10, Eubank Jr. said. The 28-year-old acknowledges that he will eventually lose his first bout. Saturday is not something he intends to do. "I've not lost. I'm undefeated. He will not be my first loss. That man I refuse to lose to," said Benn. He added, "I will lose fights, that goes without saying. My style is entertaining, but there's a level of vulnerability there that we're still working on. But not to him. Not to him. The thought of losing to him, the fear of losing to him is what gets me out of bed at 5 in the morning." Over 30 years later, Nigel Benn stands beside his son, both sharing laughs with the team. It's truly a family affair, with Benn's sisters and cousin also present at camp. Benn, who grew up in Mallorca for 12 years, converses fluently in Spanish with the locals at the gym. But the hilarity stops as the training session starts. A discernible change in attitude indicates how seriously Benn is taking this battle.
Yeah, definitely fight for the family name for sure. Putting the Benn name back where it belongs.
And Conor's going to come at him, mate. And I know that.
He says he is leaving no stone unturned as he fights for the family name and to prove his own worth in this bloodline rivalry. "I've got a chip on my shoulder about people saying I'm the Nepo kid, that I had it easy," he adds. However, dads are no longer the focus of this. Boxing fans have tarnished Benn's reputation. They believe he should be more open about the reasons for the failed test, even though an anti-doping panel has allowed him to compete. According to Benn, he has been cleared 3 times and doesn't want to think about the past. Nigel, on the other hand, spoke more candidly about how it affected them both, claiming that the legal disputes cost £1 million. The former super middleweight champion admits he isn't a regular drinker, but revealed that during his mental health struggles, he would drink half a bottle of red wine every night. Meanwhile, his son sought therapy to cope with those difficult times. "I was watching my son really crying in my arms, heartbroken. I just knew he was innocent," Nigel adds. He says, "Because if he was, I would let the public know. I'd say, mate, yeah, sorry mate, he's done this. But I know he hasn't, and I will stand with my son." In order to mimic high-altitude training, Benn wears an oxygen mask during cardio, utilizing contemporary training techniques. He discusses nutrition with skill, stating that he used to be eating curries and Pop-Tarts after weigh-ins. His inadvertent reenactment of his previous takeaway order, in the vein of Smitty from the sitcom Gavin and Stacey, has a humorous quality. "I'd have prawn puri for starters, lamb rogan josh, Bombay potatoes with some saga loo, Peshwari naan, all the papadums, pilau rice, saag paneer, Ben says. Without a doubt, he is currently leading an exceptional athletic life. However, so much has transpired outside of the ring that we may have forgotten or never had the chance to fully discover Ben's true boxing prowess. When Nigel talks about a particularly mind-blowing sparring session with an unidentified elite fighter, he gets so pumped that he can't sleep. I'm 99% sure he will beat Eubank within 4 rounds, Nigel predicts. Is this an objective assessment from one of the greatest British fighters ever? Or is it a case of rose-tinted dad glasses? World title challenger. Eubank has competed at a much higher level. Despite a stipulation limiting him to a 10 pounds weight gain by fight night, he remains the more natural fit for the weight class. Ben says, yes, I am jumping up 2 weight divisions. Yes, that brings its challenges. And yes, his CV's better. But the difference between me and him is he's lost every time he stepped up. I haven't. Ben believes that people see this as a 50-50th inches contest, even though Eubank is the bookmaker's favorite. He says, I must be delusional, or people just don't know what they're dealing with. Because I see it being a one-sided beatdown. I see it being so ferocious, so dangerous that people are wincing as I'm landing my shots. I can't see it any other way. So, that's all from today's video. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Stay tuned.